and to really get to the humanity behind these big issues, they will stop and say, oh my gosh, that really is true. There are car dealerships that have been torched, and their insurance policy is not going to cover a riot. This woman who runs a cake shop, the guy who runs the liquor store, the the dry cleaner, the franchisee who has the auto parts store. These guys are really in trouble, and they're going to need some help. And we want that help to come from people, not from a big federal government.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to briefly touch on, something that I heard on one of the live streams last night. And it goes back to what Andy was saying about this is not a racial thing. This is a liberal thing. As the people were looting last night, I heard several times, "No, not that business. That's a local business. Get the corporate ones." You know, attacking corporations and stuff like that. It was very interesting to see that. You know, we've heard a lot about it not being locals that are causing all of this destruction, but there's definitely
the anarchists were there. The anarchists were there.
There was a real anarchist presence in Ferguson.
I got to say, too, that one of the streams that I was listening to, they kept reiterating how many Illinois license plates they saw. Make of that what you will. They were counting and writing down Illinois license plates.
As well they should. I think we want to move on now, since it is Thanksgiving week. We want to move on and hit some. Sure.
One last thing, I just want to reiterate something JD has brought up in the past. Rand Paul's talk about, one thing we can do beyond, helping the individual businesses and stuff is continue pushing for legislation to bring the free market back into these inner city zones. Tax-free, low tax zones and stuff like that, enterprise zones and things. Let's bring America back into the inner city, because it's being run by people who hate America. And let's show them the beauty of a country that they think has left them. I just thought I'd throw that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we want to move on to groupering next, which is it's a fascinating bit of stuff that obviously we talked about groupering last week, and the huge explosion of conservative messaging that's developed around it. It's been a real amazing sort of whirlwind around that, and the sort of distrust that's caused. I think it's really poisoned the well.
The news on Gruber this week was that a couple of states canceled their contracts with him, so he has been personally financially injured by the revelations of who and what he is truly. That's what's astounding. It's not that secrets were revealed about him. It's that the public learned who he has publicly been all along.
Right, and sadly, he's only losing his $500,000 contracts, not his $5 million contracts that he had with the government, with the federal government.
But it's a twist. Now. It's a twist when the people who hired him can't say, "Oh my gosh, we never knew this about him." They're firing him because the public found out who this guy they hired was, and the public is not okay with. I mean, that's just kind of an interesting twist. It's not that your boss found out who you really are. It's that your customers found out who your boss hired. And the boss says, "Oh, you know what? My customers don't want this scumbag that I hired, so I'm going to have to throw the scumbag under the bus. Even though he's doing exactly what I wanted him to do, I'm going to have to pretend like I didn't want him to be this way, because what he is actually something that my customers find to be heinous."
Does anything that Gruber said they did, Gruber laid out all the dishonest strategizing that he said was going on behind the scenes. He laid all that out. Here's the question. I have two questions. The first one is, did any of that not happen?
All of it happened. He was absolutely right about all of it.
Yes, they implemented the lies, every lie, every strategy, every kooky, evil, twisted, wicked thing that he said that they should do. They implemented all that. So how can they come out and say, you know, what he said was detestable? What? You implemented every last word of what he said. My goodness. You know, it's just like with the blueprint in Colorado and so forth. You know, at one point, you know, they're talking here, you know, that they wanted to target, what was it, the stupid people, or educate the stupid people. And one of the groups that they were targeting were black people. Okay, this is, I mean, look, this is just where they are. I do have one other question though, because while what Gruber said was far more egregious than what Todd Aiken said on our side, because Aiken made one comment, Gruber made several long, streaming, you know, terrible comments, and yet Aiken was calamitous. Give me a scorecard. Which one of them is going to do more to bring down his party? Aiken at that time or Gruber now?
Aiken at that time. Aiken actually separated his party because we had, you know, he got yelled at by members of his own party. He got ostracized by his own party, and the Aiken effect hurt other people in his own party. Gruber is Gruber being big time denounced the way our side denounced Aiken?
Yes.
They're disagreeing with his comments more than they're disagreeing with anything else. Plus, he's not a politician. He's a scholar. He's not a politician, so he gets a special exemption.
He's underbussable, definitely, but he's not got a brand on him. He's very progressive, but he doesn't carry it. You know, he's not responsible for carrying a Democrat brand. Now we can utilize that, and I think we should. But as far as damage to the party in general, I don't think people are wandering around yet saying Democrats lie to us. Democrats lie to us.
Everything they say is a lie.
Well, obviously. Would you guys say that is because of the media dominance of the left, that they obviously heard Aiken everywhere and hear Gruber only in, you know, in grudging, minute detail, because it becomes embarrassing to them that it's everywhere on Fox and the internet?
Yes.
Do you think that's the reason, or do you think it's because Aiken committed the really high crime of not dropping out?
I think it's because the issues are also inherently different. The way that abortion is polarizing is far different from the way that Obamacare is polarizing. So again, since Gruber is not an elected official, since he is not a Democrat with a, you know, he doesn't have a D next to his name, it's really hard to really use that to smudge the. Sorry, go ahead, Fishy.
No, look at what you're actually having the people have to do, though. Do we understand how the CBO scores anything? That's what he's talking about. He was talking to a room of people who were in the field of government and bill writing and or progressive politics in general. Explaining that to people, what they've actually done, is different from having the words come out of his mouth, you know, that taking advantage of the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. Those are two separate things. Aiken, there was no divide about what Aiken was saying. There was no, you know, low-level messaging and then higher level, here's what he really said, but people are misunderstanding it. There was nothing like that. It was plain and clear and understandable to everybody. Part of the problem with Gruber is unless you are going to stop at they lied, it's going to take too long to explain.
Yep, and that is the key problem. One of the ways to get around that problem, I think Kurt Schlichter has a pretty good way to get around that, and it's just by keep on constantly using the Grubering meme.
Turn it into the verb that everybody just knows what Grubering means.
Yeah, and that's
conventional wisdom.
It worked for Santorum, doing that, and this is actually a case where we legitimately have a cause to this. It's not something that some jerk came up with on the internet. That's something completely different. Fishy just put one of the best quotes from Kurt Schlichter's recent article, "America, you've been Grubered," which is absolutely excellent, and we'll put it in the links and put it in the chat right now. But one of the best quotes: "The most important effect of the revelations of the administration's flunkies' history of cheesy lies about Obamacare is that liberals must now answer one threshold question before discussing the substance of any new socialist scheme. Why should we trust anything liberals say about anything?" I mean, that in and of itself is a pretty huge point. We already have them on tape saying they're stupid. They won't catch the lie because they're too stupid. Second, we don't mind lying, so let's be opaque. Let's not be transparent. Let's cover things up.
I think that needs to be a part of every political discussion we're in. Anytime we're talking to a liberal, okay, fine, they said that this will happen. Why should we believe anything they say? They lied to us about, and then list off 3 or 4 quick things, huge things like Obamacare. Use the Gruber verb like Schlichter suggests. They Grubered us on this and this and this and this. So why should we believe anything they say? And that should shut the discussion down right there if they're intellectually honest.
One thing which they're not. One thing that I heard, and it struck me that I've heard this repeatedly when we discuss the issue of why is the Gruber thing so non-damaging, whereas the Aiken thing was. It's because the Aiken thing was simple and the Gruber thing is not. Doesn't it seem that almost every conservative problem is simple for them to message around, and every liberal problem is difficult for us to message around? Is that the case, or are we just not good at figuring out the simple way to message it? Because the simple way to message Gruber is liberals lie about everything. That's easy. I think we've accepted the premise that, well, what Gruber said, it was so complicated. He was talking CBO, and it was very complex, and you have to listen, and he's just a propeller head guy, and he's just an advisor, and it's really no big deal. Whereas insignificant Todd Aiken was able to kind of take down the Republican Party because we allowed them to successfully simplify and globalize everything, and we don't use a counter strategy on stuff that should be even far more damaging and far more damning.
Well, I think part of it too is the message transmission, media that we don't have as well. Right. It's very easy for the left to simplify big issues, and
because they've got thousands of people thinking on it and figuring out how.
Indeed, and they're all coordinating to find the best message. You don't see that on the right. Yes, exactly. You do not see that sort of coordination on the right. And Aiken, honestly, from what I gathered about the whole thing, was sort of not helped, nobody made any attempt to rehabilitate him. And I get that. I understand that decision. But it is a habit on the right that we do throw out, people who I've done it myself, people get toxic in an area and you don't want to have anything to do with them anymore because they've got the taint on them. So we don't try to rehabilitate our guys. I mean, think of all the rehabilitation that's gone into several left senators or politicians or,
Marion Barry, Anthony Weiner, yes.
Ted Kennedy.
Kennedy. They stand behind their guys and they rehabilitate them.
They do.
Yeah, but keep in mind, a lot of those you mentioned were in hard left districts and states to where you could rehab them through the system. I mean, you could rehab them in the public eye, and they could survive it. Todd Aiken did an incredible incredible disservice by not stepping down immediately out of that election. And he did it